Hello again, lovelies. I am the Fragnostic, and if you didn't catch tonight's first Too Sick to Play, Party Hard, the short story is that I've been down for nearly 2 weeks with a delicious stomach flu and bronchitis cocktail that rendered my usual lively, joy-filled commentary as little more than a grumpy, gravelly monotone unable to express any emotion besides mild disgust. So glad that's fixed now. So, as with the first installment, this video is going to forego my usual live commentary style in favour of a recap. Again, this isn't a permanent direction for the channel, we're back to basics after tonight. It's more just to tie up the games I've been playing while I was too sick to sound like anything other than a mucus-filled rectum hooked up to a car battery. Now, last time on Deliverance, we were desperately trying to navigate the basement in search of a key that would hopefully allow us to permanently escape the clutches of Walter, a serial killer who's chosen to forego the formality of things like clothes and having to be within touching distance to kill you. The basement's even more of a ridiculous maze than the floor above it, and what's worse, the location of the key is completely randomized per playthrough. And good luck getting down to the basement though, because 9 times out of 10 Walter spawns along the exact corridor where the vent you need to access it lies, so you'll either run smack bang into the fucker or have to spend another 10 minutes dicking about trying to lure him off the path so you can progress. Even if by some miracle he isn't guarding the only route you need to take to progress, it's still entirely possible that the vent cover itself will just refuse to come off. There's no other way to get downstairs, so guess what, back to the fucking start you go. When you finally manage to get yourself into the basement, your nightmare is really just beginning. And to my knowledge, there's 4 places that key could be. About 50% of the time it's in the morgue, a giant open plan room that has 3 spawn locations for the key on various freezer drawers. Now you can navigate to it quite easily by following a set of minecart tracks through the belly of the basement. It just takes a long goddamn time to get there. Number 2's down there though, so make sure you say hey. If it's not in the morgue, your next place to check is the Abbey. I hate the motherfucking Abbey for one reason and one reason alone. It's the most needlessly aggravating place on the map to get to. You watch this shit, look. You have to turn off the tracks and walk down this single corridor for fucking ever. It never branches, there's no risk of getting lost or going anywhere else. It's just there to piss you off and show your sprint meter up for the pain in the arse that it is. Once you're there, you're rewarded with some plot and another flying corpse scare courtesy of Walter's dead wife. But the absolute stupidest thing about the Abbey is that by going down that long single corridor, you trap yourself for an inescapable amount of time. If that clothesless shit Walter decides at any point to follow you down there, you're fucked. You can't run anywhere else, so once again your survival is dependent on dumb fucking luck. Now if the key's not in the Abbey, and you manage to escape back the way you came, your next call is probably the showers. Now the showers are in the centre of a labyrinth you could house a minotaur in, but the easiest way to get there is not to take the correct turning in the vents down to the basement, whereupon you'll crash through the ceiling about 100 metres away from them. Besides the key, you can interrupt Walter's wife taking a shit, and also find number 1 chilling in a bathtub full of his own blood. So, if you've checked all those fucking places and the key's still not there, you can do what I did and go to the execution room, which is right next to where you enter the basement. It's so ludicrously close to where you walk in, you would never bother to think of it as a place where the key might spawn. But here, on the run where I finally managed to beat Deliverance, is where the fucking thing was, after I'd run 20 miles around the fucking basement checking the morgue, the Abbey and the showers. So, make this the first place you visit, I guess. Even though you know it will never be there. You know the only time it will show up in that fucking room is once you've checked the other 3. That's how Deliverance likes to play. Dirty as a festival toilet. So now you got the key, it's time to get the fuck out of there. Except there's no exit marked on the map, which reinforces once again how useless the map truly is. So the first thing you think is, do I need to go back to that weird black hole house now? Which I've since learned is actually called the Tesseract. It says it in the achievement list for the game. Well, no, not really. One of the big mysteries from the first video was how the fuck you were supposed to get through the Tesseract without the game randomly denying you progress by sealing off all the doors. Now before my final victorious run, I decided to try and tackle it, and found that it's not as entirely random as it first seemed. It's just incredibly obtuse. To get the doors to open, you have to examine certain objects within the house, And when I say examine, I don't mean that there's any kind of on-screen indication that you should interact with these objects. You just have to literally guess that you should stand in front of these things for a few seconds and then run back and check the doors again. It's made all the more difficult by the game becoming nearly pitch black, so you can't see what the fuck you're supposed to be staring at. And by this point, it doesn't matter whether you've got the torch or not, because it's taken away from you once you're inside. Some are easier than others, like this pregnancy test or this mutilated corpse, but others, like the fact that you have to just stare at this fucking picture to make the lights come on, are trickier to ascertain. And it goes on forever. Once you're finally through though, you fall through space for a bit and the game drops you near enough right outside the exit, so you think that once you got the key, the Tesseract would be an ideal route to take to avoid being jumped out at by water. Yeah, that's what I fucking thought. Because the second time I got the key and went through the Tesseract, it just spat me out right where I entered. Like, what the fuck? What the actual fuck is wrong with this sadistic shit? We saw in the first video that when water catches you, you randomly fall prey to an unskippable cutscene where he has you bound up in the execution room in the basement, wanders in and kills you. It's utterly pointless. You can't escape. It's just a 20-second game over screen. Well, that's 20 seconds if you're lucky, because sometimes the motherfucker just doesn't show up and you're left sitting there like a dick waiting for the cunt to finish jerking off or having his lunch or jerking off into his lunch or whatever the fuck. And sometimes when he does show up, he doesn't even bother walking. So the actual exit is back on the first floor. It's most easily reached from the red carpeted corridor where you find the Tesseract, and if the game's feeling merciful, the map. You just charge up to the furniture blockade and follow the wall round it, head for the northernmost point of the map, and then east, and eventually you'll find it just off a corridor. Do you want to see the ending? Yeah? There we go. Sweet freedom. So worth it. But you know, despite all this, I don't hate Deliverance. I don't know if it's just the Stockholm Syndrome talking, but I feel somewhat of a bond with it, similar to when I finally conquered Rake. I like to get to know this game intimately to defeat it, and I kind of feel like I've come out of an abusive relationship where, you know, yeah, Deliverance beat me around and treated me like shit, but there were good times. There were moments that pleasantly surprised me. It was a broken, unforgiving bastard, but I kinda liked that. It kept me playing. Well, that, and trying to win a Layden's approval for finishing every piece of shit I play. Notice me, senpai! Notice me!